Hey, Peter.
Okay, now I think I'm connected.
Hey Neil, hey Peter, Philip, good morning. Hey Peter, hey Philip, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, everyone's gone.
Yeah, meeting again after a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just have one small question only. So what I'm looking is in terms of metrics around OPA. I have seen in documentation we have like all sort of metrics for the health is like all the HTTP link is there. So one thing that I'm interested in is so we will be using OPA as a daemon on the host. So we want to get the whenever some request hit at endpoint in OPA, we want that metrics like which all like how many times this endpoint got hit and all those things. So is it possible to get something? I didn't see any documentation around this. Is it possible to get this metrics in OPA?
So the metric isn't how many like policies are processed, but you actually want to know how many times your API was used.
Yes. So that API is basically OPA API. Like we're gonna use like a vanilla OPA API. For example, my policy endpoint is x.y.z, and when somebody is reaching out to x.y.z, then I want a counter to get incremented to say, hey, this policy is getting hit by this many times.
I don't think there's a metric for that in being recorded in OPA. If you were recording the like Prometheus metrics or keeping track of decision logs to see which policies were hit, you could recover that information
I see.
from somewhere else, but I don't think OPA itself is keeping track of that at all.
I see. So that's
Yeah.
what I also think of. Like might be from the policy decision metrics. I can drive these metrics, but no. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of policy decision metrics, so do we have HTTP link for policy decision count as well? Like how many, like the policy decision, we get metrics in terms of decision logs only, or we get metrics in terms of counts as well? Hey, this many policy decision was made by OPA, or we again need to drive it from the logs itself.
Let me take a quick look because I don't remember that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that, but this would be a good like if we could come up with like an example Prometheus dashboard and like start pumping decision logs into it, just like as an example, because I think a lot of these numbers would be fairly easy to pull out once you're fully set up with it with some sort of dashboard.
Yeah, actually, a lot of tooling within my company is basically more custom tooling developed. So like not everything is open source. Like we're not using open source for metrics and
Right.
purposes. So I don't think we have Prometheus dashboards available with us. So what
Gotcha.
I will be doing is I will be hooking all this information to one of our dashboard and get the data from there.
Okay.
Hello.
And I know there are some metrics that we record that are counts, but I don't know which ones those are off the top of my head.
I see. So everything gonna be there in documentation. I can double check on the documentation from the count and states perspective.
The vast majority of things should be documented. Ultimately, the true authority is the code itself. But we have been meaning to actually document and like make a diagram for what do all these different metrics correspond to. But that's been put on back burner for other things for a while. I would say check the docs, and if you have a question about something, I think GitHub discussions is a common spot, as well as the help channel in the Slack. And you can ask like, hey, does this exist, or is there something like this? And usually either a member of the OPA team or a community member who's had a similar thing come up may have an answer for you.
Sure, sounds good to me.
That's what I'd recommend as your
Sure. I think Slack gonna be a good help here. I will definitely use this.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I haven't had to touch the metrics system in a couple months for any reason. So yeah, don't remember off the top of my head.
Time to revisit the metrics thing. So one more thing in terms of performance. So I was trying ChatGPT and just ask him to give me the OPA performance, and it gave me some numbers saying on Axion CPU 2.220 gigahertz, you will get like 1 million policy queries per second. It responded to me. And
So
get this response, I was looking for documentation in benchmarking tests and everything where somewhere it mentioned like how many queries OPA can handle per second.
It is so ChatGPT is very funny because it speaks with complete authority on subjects it doesn't know anything about, and it will give you answers that sound reasonable but are completely false or fabricated. We had someone in GitHub discussions a few weeks back ask about, hey, are there any Excel to Rego translators out there? And ChatGPT names off 3 reasonable sounding GitHub projects that don't exist at all. And I was just like, any of those could be real. The names sound like real projects, but none of these are real. You can search for them on the internet. They don't exist. So what I will say is, based on what I've seen, you should expect in the tens of thousands of policy evals possible per second on a reasonable multi-core CPU server. I think like for an moderately complex ABAC policy, I was seeing something on the order of, and well, I hate to name an exact number because then I'm going to get held to that later, but it was in the low tens of thousands. So it wasn't like 10,000, it was higher than that, but it was like under 50K.
I see.
Again, depending on how you design your policies, the amount of data in your policies and so on, and also like what data structures and built-ins you're using, like the mix of things that goes into the policy determines its performance. And so I've seen some people with policies where the policy itself is really simple, but they have a huge amount of data backing it. And I've seen people with really beefy policies and a tiny amount of data, and sometimes it's not obvious which one's going to be faster.
I see.
Yeah.
And in my case, I have HTTP calls to reach the data. I think then performance is going to be like, because of that latency going to get reduced there as well. Yeah,
I would recommend that if possible, try to bake as much stuff into your data as you can, or bake as much as you can upfront into the input to your policy. If you can evaluate anything in parallel, you're going to have a much better time. Or if you can push logic into the policy, that can reduce your turnaround time, because then there's no back and forth, talking between different things.
In terms of pushing data from input, I see that this is an option in OPA, but what I feel when I talk to my leads as well here in the team, so they're like, if user is doing all the work getting data, so it's just a matter of putting 2 or 3 statements only to like from the client perspective. So if I'm pulling all the data from various resources and sending it to OPA for evaluation, then it's just a matter of a couple of if statements only in my code. So they did not feel like the value addition of using OPA as a policy engine, because if I go to all my engineers say, hey, you just give me all that, pull all the data from various sources and send it as a tag it along with your input, then I think the value addition from the OPA, they're not able to justify that over at that point in time. So that's why I feel like, yeah, that makes sense. I think let you guys be, send the request and be free from all the responsibilities and let OPA and this.
It's very much intended to do one job and do it really, really well versus
I see.
integrating as like part of a bunch of other flows. I've seen people use OPA in a variety of really cool ways. Some map a little better onto what it was originally designed for than others. And so there's a number of use cases where like people need a policy engine, but this might not be quite the right fit, or they have to change how they're getting data in and out of it to get it to fit better. It's just one of those things that can happen. It's like you wouldn't want to use like Kafka or Redis to solve every problem, right? Like for the problems where you need those, you need that tool.
Gotcha.
And I would say that like for the set of problems where OPA is the right tool, it's going to be the best tool, hands down.
Totally.
There may be
Totally
cases
agree.
where you need like incredibly simple, super fast policy eval, and like you can use OPA for that. But if you're needing to do a ton of HTTP calls and back and forth, you're going to get eaten alive by the overheads pretty quick unless you can batch it somehow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Actually, the intention for me, actually, I'm just, as I mentioned, doing POC only as of now.
Yeah.
So just to show the value of OPA to my leadership by doing this. And then when I got this question, okay, we can do HTTP send in OPA. So I think
Yeah.
once that confidence got established, then more use cases arise, then we can think, I can think of optimizing things from like, I can even dictate things, hey, you should be sending this to me. So currently, I think I'm not in the shoe where I'll tell people what to do instead of I'm the receiving end. Hey, this is what you want to do. Okay, we can do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I would say that if you can typically, if you can get it so that OPA doesn't need to talk to outside systems to make a decision, that tends to get better results.
I see.
Because like if you're dealing with a network hop, now you have all of the problems of an HTTP call that could fail and cause a policy deny when it should have succeeded. So while it's a fairly robust tool and a powerful one, I wouldn't have it in your critical path if there's a way that you could batch up the context on the front side.
I see.
That said, I have seen like enterprise level policy writing where people do actually use HTTP send a lot, and it works fine, but required careful infrastructure set up on their part and careful policy writing.
I see.
Yeah.
Sure. Makes sense, I think. Totally makes sense. Yep, that's it I have for today, Philip and Peter.
All right.
Cool. Awesome. We had one more person jump in and then they left. So I guess
I saw the
that
screen shuffle and then they just
shut up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they changed their mind. Okay. Well, I guess that'll be it for today. All right, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. All right, Philip, I'll chat with you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you. A good one.
Right.
Bye.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.
What help you need?